Welcome to lesson 34, proportion by parts of numbers in operation. Lesson 34 of numbers in operations. Here's a lesson that teachers definitely do not get a chance to teach at all, or maybe some small percentage of people get a chance to teach. It really doesn't come up that much, but I'm going over it, so bear with me. Okay, here's our objective. All right. Now, since we know about proportion, we know that if we read this carefully, for every 5 votes Leo received from his teammates, Bob got 3 votes. So now we have a 5, and I do this every time, forget to put the marker on. A 5 votes for Leo and 3 votes for Bob. So now, how many votes is that in total? That is 8 votes. And so we want to find out what's going to get us to 32 votes. Well, there are several ways to solve this problem. So let's try to use equivalent fractions. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply by 2. And then I will get, so if Leo gets 10 votes, then Bob should get 6 votes. 6 for Bob. And that gives us 16. So we're going in the right direction. 16 is half of 32, but we're not quite there yet. And so now all we need is an equivalent fraction to give us 32. So how do we get from 16 to 32? Well, you multiply by 2, which means we're going to have to multiply this one by 2. And let's pick this up on the next page. So 10 votes for Leo to 6 votes for Bob with 16 votes total equals, well, we're multiplying by 2 over 2, which gives us the 20 votes for Leo and then 12 votes for Bob. And if you add these up, you get 32. And voila, this tells you how many votes each boy got. So we really didn't do cross multiplication or anything like that, but we had to take a step back and think about it. And this is why I took the time to do all that stuff with fractions and rates and ratios and all that kind of things, because this is the application for those earlier lessons. So now let's look at example 2. And you'll see this a lot in a lot of things. Pat mixes 5 quarts yellow, 2 quarts orange, and 1 quart white paint. If she wants to make 16 quarts of this mixture, how many quarts of each color does she need? And so here again, we're going to use equivalent fractions to solve this problem. So in the last example, we used equivalent fractions, and I'm going to do a similar thing here, but I'm going to use proportions and equivalent fractions. So let's see, what are we given? We're given 5 quarts yellow, 2 quarts orange, 1 quart white makes a batch or a mixture. So now we have to make up some kind of proportion. So let's take 5 yellow over the total amounts. 5 plus 2 plus 1 makes 8 quarts of paint. So 5 quarts yellow out of 8 quarts of paint. So now, on the other side, we're going to need yellow and total quarts of paint. So we have 16. And we're going to solve this equation, which will give us yellow. So you'll see 5 times 16 over 8 gives us y. And now before we multiply, we can reduce. We can take 8 and a 16, divide by 8 once, 16 divided by 8 is 2. And so we have 10 quarts of yellow paint makes up the 16 quart mixture, and we're going to use this to figure out the same proportion but out of each different color to figure out each part individually. So now all this gave us was how many quarts of yellow. We still need to figure out how many quarts of orange and how many quarts of white, and we'll do that on the next slide. Okay, so now we got 2 quarts of orange out of 8 quarts of paint. Now, orange by itself over 16 quarts, and it's going to be the same thing. 2 times 16 over 8 equals orange paint to make the 16 quart mixture. And we reduce, not cross multiply. So now 4 quarts of orange, we get 4 quarts of orange. We had, I believe, 10 quarts of yellow. We had 10 quarts of yellow from the previous page, 4 quarts of orange. And so now if we know we need 16 totals, 10 plus 4 should give us 14. So that means 14 is 2 away from 16. We should need 2 quarts of white. So let's check and do the math. But let's check. So for white, is 1 quart of white out of the 8 quart original mixture, and 16 for how many quarts of white? Well, you can see by direct comparison, 8 to 16 is 2, and 1 times 2 gives us 2, but I will go ahead and do it the right way. So if I cross multiply, I get 1 times 16 over 8 equals the amount of white paint we need. And from previous, 8 divided by 8 is 1, 16 divided by 8 is 2, and we need 2 quarts of white paint. And if we add the totals that we just calculated for, you get 10 plus 4 plus 2 gives us 16. So proportion by parts is, you're going to have to do some adding, you're going to have to use equivalent fractions, you're going to have to use proportions, and really take the time to set up these problems. So take your time with it, and I know that you can do it, but you're just going to need more practice. And this is the end of our examples. There's one practice problem to work on, and I will see you at the end of the video. All right, I hope this one didn't trip you up too much, but let's look at what we're given here. So a nursery divides 360 acres of land into 3 sections. So 3 is a number, 360 is a number. And it tells you to divide. And we're growing 3 different types of trees. We give you the ratio. So now, the first thing you got to do is do 360 divided by 3 equals how much? 3 goes into 36 12 times and bring down a 0. So now we have 3 strips of 120 acre plots of land. So now we have 1 over 120 equals our total, because this is proportion is for the strip. One type of tree, let's call it a peach tree. 1 peach tree for every 120 acres, along with all the other trees that are going to be planted. And we don't know how many trees are going to be planted in 360 acres. But look, 12 times 3 is 36. So if we multiply 1 times 3, 1 over 120, if you times 3 over 3, you'll get 3 over 360. So for every 120 acres, you get 1 peach tree. If you multiply it by 2, you get 2 peach trees in 240 acres. If you multiply it by 3, you get 3 peach trees in 360 acres of land. And so let's pick up the next one. All right, so now we have 4 trees. We just had a peach tree. Now we got a cherry tree. So we got 4 peach trees sitting on 120 acres. And our total acreage is 360 acres. So how many cherry trees in 360 acres? It's the same ratio. 12 goes to 360. So if we do 4 over 120 and we multiply by 3 over 3, we'll get 12 out of 360. So you get 12. So let's call this 3 peach. That's it, 12 cherry. And now we need another fruit, I guess. So if we're talking about 5 out of 120 equals, let me do this in a different color so you don't get confused. So if we're talking about 5 out of 120 equals x over 360, if our multiple is 3 over 3, then we get 15 over 360, and then let's call it 15 apple trees. So how many acres are used for each type? Oh, it only asks for how many acres are used for each type. And we solved that at the beginning with 120 acres. I should have asked a different question, but that's the question I asked. So, there you go. And make sure you be careful when you're answering questions. That is indirect proportion. You'll see these problems again. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can receive notifications. Thank you.